Welcome to Tobacco.com. Call me StogieShane. I'll be your personal host on this exciting new trip. Tobacco.com is unlike any other cigar store online. The difference is that we're made up of a network of cigar brick and mortar merchants just like the one I'm standing in. This happens to be my local home store here in Florida, where I do business with on a daily basis. I love my local tobacconists, and I greatly value more than anything the friends and the camaraderie that occurs right here in this shop. Most of my day job business contacts came from right here in this store, and I've bought a ton of things from people in this cigar shop. So I hate to think that these shops are going out of business, but that's the reality. Truth is, people happen into their local tobacconist and listen to the recommendations of those shop owners and pick their top favorite cigars. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 different shops, and sometimes it's over the course of a number of years, but the truth is you probably got your favorite few sticks from the referrals of a tobacconist. The new trend, though, is to go home and order the bulk of the cigars for your humidor from an online discounter. I understand that the discounts are steep. In some cases it's 50%, but that's because your local tobacconist has got to store a box of cigars for a month or 2 before he can move every one of them. Meanwhile, overhead adds to the price of each and every one of those sticks. So now you can purchase those same sticks from a local guy and get them shipped to you from their walk-in. It's a great concept. From time to time, I'll feature a cigar on Tobacco.com and put up a video review of that cigar. You can buy that cigar through my video review link from a local merchant, just like this one or the one down the street from you. Today I'm not going to review a cigar. Since the website's starting from the ground up, so does our relationship. So I'll do a little bit of a Cigar 101 and describe a little bit of cigar history and construction and proper ways to store, light, cut some cigars, and cigar etiquette as well. The history of cigars actually begins about 7,000 years ago with the Mayan civilization. They're the first, after all, that began experimenting with tobacco. I'm not a history major, so I'll skip all of that altogether up until the most important, or at least recently the most important, change in the cigar industry. When the embargo was signed in 1962, it was a result of the nationalization that occurred there in the economy. The government seized control of all of the land and all of the crops held by the cigar industry. They offered the patriarchs and matriarchs places to work within their own companies, but working for the government. Now the profits were no longer theirs, and the working conditions were deplorable. So some of the families, with great pride, gathered some seeds and they fled the country. The most notable are the Menendez, the Palacio, and the Cifuentes families. They fled to places like Nicaragua, Honduras, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, even Mexico, and set up shop there. And they found places with a better political environment to do business. So they started from the ground up and they rebuilt their companies. That's why today you find 2 different Romeo and Juliets. That's why you find 2 different Cohibas, 2 different Bolivars, etc., etc. One is owned by the Cuban government, and it's just a derivative of the family's original heritage. The other is the family's original heritage that relocated and went somewhere else. The reality is that every cigar in Cuba has to be sold as quickly as possible to maintain the country's economy. It's not a privately owned label where they're allowed to sit on their tobacco and age it for a year or 2. In Cuba, the cigars are rolled very quickly and sold very quickly, as the income is necessary to maintain the economy. A privately owned company elsewhere in the world can sit on the tobacco and age it as long as necessary to allow it to mature. They also have the political latitude to gather crop from different regions of the world and blend a cigar. Blended cigars are oftentimes better than those grown in a single valley. Cigars can be divided into about 5 different color categories, which is double claro, claro, Colorado claro, Colorado, and Maduro, in order from mildest and lightest in color to strongest and boldest and darkest in color. The ring gauge of a cigar is a number given in 64ths of an inch. So say a 60 ring gauge cigar is 60/64ths of an inch in diameter. Vitolas are the names given to common combinations of diameter and length when considering the size and shape of a cigar. The 4 most common are Robusto, Corona, Churchill, and Panatella. When starting out cigar smoking, you should not only look for your favorite cigars and try and figure out which ones you like, but you should also try and whittle down your lighting ritual or ceremony, so to speak. Just as you search for your favorite cigar, you should also search for your favorite lighting ceremony. This will become a habit when lighting a cigar. Each person is a little bit different from the next, but it all revolves around the same couple of steps. The biggest key, or two keys rather, will be in cutting and lighting itself. You can choose whatever kind of cut that you like. I prefer a Cuban cut, and I'll explain that in a moment. The cap is at the head end of the cigar, and that's what completes the wrapper itself. If you completely remove the cap, the cigar will begin to unravel. It's kind of a mess. Only remove as much as necessary. You want to try and keep the cap intact. I prefer the Cuban cut, like I said before, which is a diagonal cross section of the cap, leaves about half the cap intact, and the other half is removed. When lighting a cigar, don't use fluid-based lighters or high sulfur content matches. They impart flavors into the cigar that are really, really bad, and they can last the entire length of the cigar. Zippos are notorious for that. If you must use a Zippo with a butane insert. When lighting the cigar, you want to toast the foot of the cigar. You want to do it slowly and in the direct flame itself. As you're doing it, you'll notice that the end or edge of the cigar takes on a charred look. As long as that charred look is uniform throughout, chances are you'll have a clean burning cigar the entire time. Once you've toasted the end of the cigar, you want to hold it at about a 45 or 90 degree angle, about 3/4 of an inch out of the flame, and draw while rotating. Once you've done that, it's important to hold the cigar away and blow on it a few times to ensure that the cherry and the color is uniform throughout. As you do, you'll notice that it becomes completely uniform. When your ash does get long enough to knock off, note the placement of the cherry within the ash. If your cherry sits in a recessed hollow or ravine inside the cigar, then you're smoking it a little bit too slowly. The cherry is consuming the inside of the cigar, and you're not getting any of the wrapper. It can start to taste really hot and acidic. However, if you knock it off and you notice that your ash is in a big triangle form, then you're smoking it too quickly. You're only getting the wrapper itself to burn. At home, store your cigars in a humidor. There's all kinds of different styles out there, different sizes and so forth. The best way to choose a humidor, aside from aesthetics, once you determine that necessity, is to determine the number of sticks that you plan on keeping. You should choose a humidor that will be about 75% stocked with that number. So if you want to keep 20 sticks, buy a humidor good for 20 to 30 cigars. Don't go out and buy a 50 or 100 count humidor. Empty humidors are very inefficient. It's like plugging in a refrigerator with nothing in it. It'll never catch up. It always needs maintenance. It'll just run, run, run. So keep that in mind when you choose a humidor. Cigars stored properly in a humidor can last indefinitely. I have a couple from the 1980s, and I really, really value them. I don't even know if I'll ever smoke them. That'll be kind of a tragedy. They can actually take on a little bit of a musky scent or a smelly cheese scent, but they're really, really fantastic. Humidification in a humidor is achieved through two different ways. You can choose a passive humidifier, which basically wicks away moisture from, or in some cases, to the humidification device to keep the relative humidity at the proper level. Or you can choose an active humidifier, which has a bladder inside that retains moisture and then a fan that circulates air and moisture throughout the humidor. Regarding cigar etiquette, some practices are really debated. Whether to leave the band on or not is completely up to you. That's oftentimes the most discussed. Whatever you do, don't dip your cigars in spirits. I hear people all the time, or see them sometimes, dipping their cigars in scotch or rum. It just ruins the taste of a cigar. It does nothing to improve it. If you really want to buy some sort of an infused cigar, get exactly that. I don't personally care for them, but a lot of people do. Don't cut cigars for other people. As I said before, it's kind of a prized ritual that each person will develop on their own, and there's way too many different types of cuts out there to make sure that you get it right for a stranger. Just let people cut their own cigars. If they don't know what they're doing, ask which cut they prefer, and if they don't know, then choose your own favorite cut. But don't assume that somebody wants you to give them a cut cigar. Don't light cigars for other people. It's an important component of the cutting and lighting ceremony, and oftentimes people look forward to it on their own. In addition, don't hold up a lighter for somebody else when they're cutting and lighting a cigar. It kind of rushes their process, and some people want to take 3 or 4 minutes to smell the cigar before they light it, taste the cigar before they light it. Rushing somebody into a lit cigar may ruin the whole experience for them as well. While smoking a cigar, pay attention to the ash. Make sure to discard it properly in an ashtray. While science has proven that carpet embedded with ash will not stain, most people aren't scientists and they really won't appreciate you dropping the ash in the carpet. The best advice I can give any new smoker is to save the band. Just keep it in a dossier, which is a notebook or a journal that helps you remember which ones you like and don't. You can then bring that dossier into your tobacconist and show them which cigars you like. They may have them or they may have something very similar, and that's how you can find new cigars as well.